To county staff, good morning to those citizens that are tuning in, and good morning to everybody. Tuesday, November the 3rd, Election Day. If you haven't voted yet, sign out of here and go vote. And then sign back on. So, the word for the day is make sure you go vote. Could be a very interesting night tonight to see how things play out. And I hope that, as I'm sure all my colleagues will agree with me, I hope that knuckleheads will not prevail this evening. And I'll just leave it at that. You know, with all the threats of violence and whatever else, we don't need that here in the United States of America. So there's my political statement for the day, and I promise I'll stop now. Today is a work session. Thank you, Commissioner Boucher. Today is a work session with planning. As you know, we're in the right smack dab in the middle of a lot of comprehensive rezoning here. So as we typically do with our open sessions, we're going to open with rising for the pledge. Then we'll observe a moment of silence, and then we will move on. So if we'd all please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all very much. Just a quick note. We want to thank staff for all that they're doing here when it comes to our comprehensive rezoning. We can't thank staff enough. Yesterday, and we'll talk more about this on Thursday. Yesterday, we had our credit rating hearings all day, and it was a long day, but I want to thank staff also, and I think the day was incredibly productive, and we'll see where we go there. So I'm going to stop talking now, and today's proceedings, I'm going to hand over to Commissioner Ed Rothstein. He's going to run the show today, as he is our ex officio for planning and zoning. So I will turn it over into the capable hands of Commissioner Ed Rothstein to run today's proceedings. Ed, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Stephen. I appreciate it. Also, ditto on your comments regarding our key leaders and staff yesterday. I look forward to having more of that discussion on Thursday to highlight the work done in the bond rating presentations. As you know, this morning, we're going to be doing a work session. It is scheduled for 3 hours. We'll see where it goes. In the Army, we say we train to standard, not to time. So if it gets done before 3 hours, we're done. And if not, we'll go as long as the quality lasts, because that's what this is all about, is quality and making these decisions and preparing us into making these decisions on the rezoning requests for commercial, industrial, and employment campuses. I got three chunks I want to walk through up front, and then really what I'm going to do is hand it off to Ms. Eisenberg, to Linda, to get us started in looking at the first 10 properties that we heard from the community the other day during our listening session. But first and foremost, I'm absolutely very proud of Linda and the leadership, Mary, and the entire leadership and team over at our planning department. Their work and dedication in being responsive to the community is nothing but I think very promising in moving forward. I don't see it often when folks are so responsive that they're always looking at getting it right. So I'm very proud of what she has done and what she continues to do. Also, in the same breath, the Planning Commission. We worked hard to create the Planning Commission with a team of folks that represent our community and our county. We do have representation from the entire county, all 5 districts. Again, I'm very proud of the work they're doing and the selfless efforts and dedication to the community. And it's highlighted by their ability to listen to the community and take away the notes and ideas from the county folks on decisions that they need to make, using the tools that we put in front of them, like the master plan, the freedom plan, the zoning definitions that we've created to ensure that everything is in conformance to their decisions that they make. The last piece I just want to share, and then I want to hand it off to Ms. Eisenberg, is as we walk through this, there's a few things I want us all to consider. And whether we build dialogue now or just consider as we move forward, is just because you can does not mean you should. So just because something is legitimate in accordance with the definitions doesn't mean it's the right answer. Common sense from the five of us, and this is where I really believe that we all working together can make the best decisions, has to be where we want to go, and that takes into consideration the future land use, the master plan, all these other plans and definitions, but also takes into consideration the expectations of the community and what is best for the community. If something is rising to a level of uncertainty and you can do something, it doesn't mean you should, whether it has to do with the schools, the infrastructure, the fire EMS support in the area. There are some challenges in roads, and right now they may show a traffic analysis of above standard, but it could be right at that water level, and we got to consider that. And sometimes making a decision not to do something or to put something off could be the best decision in moving forward. And then other times, we got to look at how we want to make those decisions. Another thing is understanding the property owner themselves. Is what is the intent of the property owner? Is the property owner's intent to expand a property that they are already performing on, whether it's commercial, industrial, or whatever? Or is a property owner looking to sell that piece of property and develop it in another way, or get a developer to purchase that and develop it in another way? These have two very different actions to them, and we got to ensure, I believe, that we have less uncertainty in the community. And again, it comes back to expectation management. What is best for our community? What is best for our county? It's not political. It's not about taxes. It's not about constituents. It's about community and neighbors, in making Carroll County a place where we want to all be. We want to live. We want to work. We want to play. As Commissioner Wance has highlighted in the bond rating presentations yesterday, there's no better place in the state of Maryland because of the things we do and because we're taking this approach. Let me see, common sense approach, got it, consideration land use. The intent is really important to me, is property owner's intent compared to the community's intent. Focusing on less uncertainty and better expectations. And then the last thing I just want to say, I'm going to hand it off, is quality. It's got to be about quality. If we get presented 10 pieces of property and we can't come to a determination, then we should stop, focus on the piece of property, and get do as much due diligence and homework necessary to provide the best answer. We are not driven by a timeline on this. And I'm committed myself to that, as I know the four of you have as well. And listen, learn, and lead is not a tagline. It is an opportunity for us to do what's best for our county. And now it's time for us to move forward, continue to listen from the community, learning from everyone, and then leading with the decisions. So that's kind of what I want to open up, for the last few minutes. Are there any thoughts or ideas before I hand it off to Linda?
Commissioner
Okay.
Rossi, I just want to thank you for that introduction. I think you surmised it quite well. Thank you.
Sure. And so we got now 2 hours and 55 minutes scheduled on this work session. So Linda, why don't you pop up on the screen and first share with us what your expectations are for this morning for us and what you plan on showing us over the next 2.5 to 3 hours.
Well, good morning, and I actually have a good bit of news for you. It's only 2 hours. So now you're down to an hour and like 45 minutes or so. So I couldn't do that to my 3 hours as much as I enjoy spending time with you on talking about rezoning. 3 hours is a bit lengthy. So anyway, we are here today, as Commissioner Rothstein said, to present to you the first 10 properties of the by request comprehensive rezoning. If you recall, about a month or so ago, you got this giant binder that has the detailed staff reports as well as comments we received up until the issuance of this binder. Last night, I sent you, just ahead of today, the presentation for today, which is a skimmed down version of this binder, as well as comments we've received since the binder has been issued, which were just a few, mainly for the K&P resource properties. Today I have with me Price Wagner, Cody Spade, and Claire Stewart that will be presenting as well. What we'll be doing is going through the detailed staff reports in order in which they're found in the binder. Staff members that did the reports will be presenting their staff reports. We have 2 other work sessions. So what we did, because we have 28 properties, we tried to break up into 3 work sessions with you all to give the detailed staff report. So as Commissioner Rothstein said, on Thursday, we had our first listening session, and that was for comments for all 28 properties that you all heard. Now we're doing 3 work sessions to give you the detailed staff report on each property, followed by a public hearing that we have on December 3rd. After that, whatever discussion, continuance you need will happen after then the public hearing. If you choose to have another public hearing or another listening session, we'll make those determinations with you in December. So with that, Chris, if I can get my screen shared, that would be great, please.
Linda, you are currently the presenter, so you should be able to start it up.
Oh, it's okay, great, thank you. So can you all see my screen? Okay, great. So again, just to kind of reiterate, we've talked about this before, and Commissioner Rothstein said much of this already, but why are we doing this? So again, there's 2 types of rezonings in Maryland. Comprehensive rezoning, which is the process that we're in now that happens after the adoption of plans, and a change or mistake rezoning. And those are the ones that you hear when someone comes forward and it's not part of plan implementation, but they feel that there's been a change in the character of the community unforeseen by a plan, or there was a mistake in the original zoning. That is not the bar that we have to meet for this rezoning because we are doing it comprehensively. Because of the implementation of the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan and the 2018 Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan. And again, the foundation of the effort are the land use recommendations, and that's what we looked at first and foremost as staff recommendations, and then finally Planning Commission recommendations. The updated land use definitions that were outlined in both plans, and then housing and economic development goals and objectives. So again, this is plan implementation, and it's Maryland has articulated in the land use article that implementation from a comprehensive rezoning is an action taken that will further not be contrary to the terms that the plan addresses. And we're looking at policies of timing of implementation of the plan, timing of development, timing of rezoning, development patterns, land uses, densities, and intensities. So that gets to what Commissioner Rothstein said, just because it says so in the plan, what are the other outlying factors that would say maybe now is not the time in this plan cycle? Again, these are 30-year plans over a 10-year planning horizon. This is not piecemeal rezoning. I know that some comments have come forward that these are piecemeal rezonings. These are not piecemeal rezonings. These keep in mind that we are not doing spot zoning, and spot zoning is illegal in Maryland. And spot zoning does not mean you have a piece of property that's commercial surrounded by something else that's non-commercial. Spot zoning actually means that you are given zoning to a particular property for the benefit of that property. It has no planning implications. It's purely just for the benefit of that property. And that's almost like contract zoning. So that's not legal in the state of Maryland. And one of the tenets that we looked at, not only in the master plans, but in this process, was not to convert conditional uses or non-conforming uses to permitted use districts. Meaning if someone's conditionally approved to behave in a certain way on their property, they're allowed, that's fine. And just to refresh your memory, non-conforming uses are uses that were in existence prior to that zoning category. We have a lot of properties that have come forward as part of this effort that are non-conforming. They've been in existence for forever, but now they want to be rezoned in a manner that they feel is more befitting of their property. But one could argue that the planning process itself reviewed those properties and said, you know what, it's not meant to change. That non-conforming use is the use on the property now. They're allowed to exist indefinitely and they're allowed to expand. But legitimizing it, you're not just legitimizing that property for that use, but you have to contemplate all the uses allowed in the zoning category for which they're being rezoned to. And some things just may not be appropriate for a particular area. And that's when the master plan process for the Freedom and the countywide master plan, Planning Commission felt not to change those properties. We did look at a lot of properties that were behaving maybe commercially, but that were still ag zoned or conservation zoned or residentially zoned, what have you, but did not intentionally change them because that area may not have been appropriate for all of the industrial or commercial uses that are allowed in an area. So this is the overview map. Now there are 28 properties. The majority of them are on the eastern section of the county. And today we're going to be going through 1 through 13. We're going to skip over 10 and 11 because they are next to each other and they break up a pocket of the 9, 12, and 13. The reason of that numbering is that 9 came in first, then there was a lull before 12 and 13 came in. And those are the K&P resource properties. We wanted you to look at all of those together in the staff report. Some updated statistics that are updated differently from your binder. Now we have 28 applications. There's 535 acres that have been requested as part of this effort. This pie chart breaks down. The majority of the acreage is in the Employment Campus District, which is befitting of Employment Campus. Those are meant to be large parcels that can be developed in a comprehensive way. And there's only 4 of those. So about half the acreage we're talking about is in the Employment Campus. Then really kind of divided out between the C3, the I2, and the C2. And the majority is in the I2. Again, those are large industrial properties. So the percentages and the number of properties being requested really do fit with what we're talking about here, that, you know, larger industrial properties should be larger properties, not smaller properties, should be less of them. C2, which is typically a mid-sized to smaller district, we have the most number of those, but not as much acreage, again, because those typically are smaller properties for medium type of commercial development. So I also want to address the Reservoir Technical Group as part of our signatories with the Baltimore region for the reservoir watersheds of Pretty Boy, Lock Raven, and Liberty. Carroll County has signed into an agreement with Baltimore City and Baltimore County with regard to protection of the Liberty Reservoir. I know you all received a comment also directly last week from that group, so I also want to address what their concerns are and what the agreement says and the properties that are within that reservoir watershed agreement. So because a good third of Carroll County falls into those reservoir watersheds. Much of what we do, especially in our growth area of the northern part of Freedom, the 140 corridor with Finksburg and Westminster, and Hampstead and Manchester, a lot of what we do in the county does fall into those watersheds. The watershed,
Linda,
yes.
can I just, one question? You mentioned, that this is the comprehensive plan, but there's no time frame on this, correct?
There's no time frame for plan implementation, but the decision was made to move into plan implementation after the adoption of the plans.
Yeah, but that's locally, that decision was made, but this is, we're under no requirements to do actually anything in this, correct?
Correct. You don't have to do any implementation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So out of those 500 plus acres, 315 or so meet the reservoir technical agreements concerns. And they were looking at properties specifically that were agri-conservation going to a more intense district. 4 of those are not consistent with the plan, so meaning that the plan did not recommend them to be changed to begin with. And then the remaining were recognized in the plan to move to a different district. And we'll go over each one of those as we go through the report. So what the agreement does say is that it's insofar as possible. So if there are properties that, because they are economic drivers for Carroll County, they are within our growth areas that we've already designated, that we want more commercial, industrial, or more intense type of development as opposed to ag and conservation land, that you can do that. So it's suggested that you look at those properties very carefully, but does not prohibit you from rezoning them to a more intense district. But just be thoughtful in your consideration of why those properties would move forward. The ones that are consistent with the plan were reviewed by the RTG during both the Freedom Plan and the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan. The ones that are not consistent were not reviewed for more intensity because the plan did not recommend this. So those are new for that group to see. And so their comments are a little bit stronger for ones that are not consistent with the plan. So that's all I have to kind of reiterate prior to moving forward with the actual properties themselves. I actually did the staff reports for the first few properties, so I'm going to go ahead and review those with you now. Are there any questions before we move forward? Okay. So the first property is EC 14-2020-0001. And how they came up, just so you know why we have these long names, this is helping us keep things in order. That EC means they're requesting employment campus. So the first 2 bits of information are what they're requesting to. 14 is the district that they're in. 2020 is the year in which they came in, because we knew this was going to be a multi-year effort. So we wanted to keep track of the year that these were done. And then 1 means what number they came in. So this is the first application that we had come in. And this is APAR partnership, and the request is to go from ag to employment campus. This property is found off of Pleas Mill Road, north of Ronsdale and Dixon Lane. This is also known as the Legacy School. And it's currently just outside the Carroll County Priority Funding area. If these properties move forward to be rezoned employment campus, along
Linda,
with...
Linda, can you pause 1 minute? I want to be able to find this in the binder to go along with you. So that these long numbers are fine, and I understand why you did it, but it's, can you get us to where we are in the binder, please? And then also it would be easier if you could get to the setting on your sharing screen. That would give you the entire screen instead of the format that we're seeing here.
So the issue with that is I then can't see anything.
Oh, okay.
So I can do it. Just
Linda,
Yes.
I think you can just make it like a regular PowerPoint, just like you
Yeah.
would.
And it takes away my other screen, and that had information on the other screen I'm looking at. So that's okay. I'll just have to figure it out a different way.
Well, if you want to stay in that format, that's fine, but just make sure we know where we are in the binder, and that'll help me.
Are not paged consecutively. They're paged by property. So this is just I'm on the first map of that property, the EC 1420200001. So it should be the first property in your book.
It's about 8 pages back in the book,
Might be.
from my book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Getting there. Okay, yep, I'm there. Thank you. Okay, I'm good.
And this property is part of a larger suite of properties that are actually owned by the Carroll County Commissioners that are formerly known as the Delaney properties. Part of that is in the priority funding area. The remaining properties are not yet. I would suggest that if the properties are rezoned to employment campus and they are currently in the amended water and sewer master plan, that we look to apply priority funding area to these parcels as well, moving forward in the future. This is an aerial image of the property coming off of Terrapin Drive. This property is 3.86 acres, and as I said, this is the current site of the Legacy School. The property has been zoned agriculture since 1965 and is surrounded by current ag zoning, but the future land use in the area is employment campus and industrial. Here's just a picture of the front entrance of the Legacy School.
Linda, I apologize. You just said employment campus and industrial.
Yes,
What's industrial?
I'm going to show you on the next map what the surrounding future land use is and zoning.
Okay.
So across the way are industrial properties that are part of that, I think it's the South Carroll Industrial Park, the Clean Mill, Enterprise. So to the west is all industrially zoned. To the east is currently ag zone, but the future land use designation is employment campus. And you'll see that in the next map, that the future land use designation is employment campus. And these are known as the Delaney properties. There are some private properties intermixed here that were also designated employment campus. They did not come in to request being rezoned, but it does not prohibit them from doing what they are currently doing on their property by being zoned employment, by not being zoned employment campus. They're still retained with current zoning.
Linda, let me let you pause there for a second, because there are a handful of properties that we're going to be looking at where adjoining properties are still not defined or are defined and being requested being changed. So like the one down on 27, Eric, and you're, in District 4, you have two properties. One is being, changed, and then they're looking at requesting another change. The Beatty property is another good example. There's one request being changed from, industrial to commercial, but then there's also the residential on the outskirts that's also looked at being changed or potentially being changed. This is another example of that. So where I'm going is we got to be careful not to look at just the one piece of property, but the surrounding areas on whether they've been fully defined or there's still questions on whether they're going to be changed or not, and how that's going to impact our decisions. Because, up on 140 Ridge Road, that's another example of a handful of properties that are being looked at and being changed. And, we just have to be aware of that. I just wanted to throw that out there.
So in this section, as you did say, so these are all in the queue. So the property, two Delaney properties here and the one Delaney property to the south. You can follow my cursor. This little cutout here, this cutout, and this cutout are not coming forward with rezoning at this time. I'm not going to read all of the purpose and intents, but basically the purpose of the employment campus district is to provide for a comprehensively planned employment center like campus setting to attract highly skilled workers and higher paying jobs. This was one of the main tenets of both the Freedom Plan and the countywide master plan is to foster economic development, to keep Carroll Countyans working in Carroll County in those higher paying jobs. So that was one of the ideas when we developed the employment, or redeveloped, I should say, the employment campus district, as you all know, that we were looking to do. There's more information in your document. I did not put every single slide because we would never be done. But again, this is in the water and sewer service area. And it is in the long range future sewer service area. There are some limited environmental constraints on the northern end. There are no environmental constraints on this particular piece of property. Findings of consistent.
And there's no water or sewer there now, is that correct?
Correct, there's no water and sewer on this property now.
Okay.
But it's in the planned service area. So, you know, the thought is if and when these properties develop, to develop in the employment campus, it would be good to bring out water and sewer, which is very close by. There's the water tower on the property here. There's access to be able to extend water and sewer to these properties. The Legacy School, if they should expand, they would be allowed to expand under employment campus, and perhaps maybe they would move into the Delaney properties. If water and sewer were brought here and they wanted to hook up, that could be an option for this particular property in the future.
Okay, I have one question. What is the economic impact on the county for taking these properties and making them employment campus? Do we have any benefits and costs involved, proposed cost on any of these?
We did not do a cost benefit study. However, in 2007 was the last time an economic development study was done, Edlin study, and that was one of the primary studies that we utilized in developing not only the Carroll County Master Plan, but the Freedom Area Plan. And that study highlighted the Delaney properties as a potential area for future economic development. But I do not have a cost benefit. We just do not have the expertise in-house to do cost benefit studies.
Yeah, Dick, that brings up a really good point, is without looking at understanding what is the intent, again, of the property owner making this request, do they have an intent? And this one I know they do, and that's to expand the school, and they need the property to expand the school. And then also, then what is the risk associated with it? And what's the benefit? And a benefit to the property owner, to the community, and then to the county. And if we can look at it in those three categories, I think we can make a better objective decision, intent, risk, and benefit associated with it. So I appreciate it.
This was potentially these properties for a school, right? A school site, I think was why they were purchased.
That's my understanding. At one point in time, Carroll County Schools were looking at one of these sites as a future middle school. We did work with them in moving forward with this. When we adopted the plans, there was no further interest in developing a middle school site. Again, when these plans were developed, there was a contraction in the school system. If you recall, 3 schools were closed, middle, elementary, and a high school. So they did not feel that there was another need to retain these for an additional middle school site. We did talk to economic development, and they were supportive of moving these properties to employment campus during the planning process, and even with the comprehensive process.
I'm not opposed to where we're going here. I'm just looking down the road. what will this cost us budget-wise in the future? That's my major concern. I think this is the logical site for an employment campus, but
Okay, just to get the clarification of how we're setting the stage today, because I'm a little bit unclear. Are we going to debate each of these properties, or is today the day just to be presented the plan? Because I know we heard comments from citizens on these too. So help me understand what we're doing today.
Staff's goal and intent was to introduce each property in a more detailed manner so you would understand a bigger picture than the briefing that we gave to you a couple weeks ago. Now, what Planning Commission did, and this is up to this body to make that decision, was staff has given a recommendation. At the end of hearing the staff reports, Planning Commission gave a provisional recommendation on each property, then continued to have outreach and discussion, and then came back with a final recommendation for you all. We're going to tell you what their recommendation is for each property. If you want to do provisional recommendations, that seemed to be a really good way for Planning Commission to work. That's a decision and discussion for you all to have if you want to make a provisional recommendation for each property. As you hear them today as a placeholder, it's not a final decision, and then you will go back after the public hearing at some future work session or discussion point to make a final vote.
I'll tell you, Steve, that's a whole lot. And if that's the case, if we are going to make provisional decisions, then we will be debating each one of these properties into a lot of dialogue. I'm not sure that's where we want to go right now. I think we want to have discussion on each one of these properties to do the homework on understanding intent, benefit, risk, all that kind of fun stuff, and then build on that. Because if not, we will, like you said, just go into a debate and then make a provisional decision. I didn't think that's where we were going this morning. I thought this was more information gathering and then all of us discussing what other information we need to gather from it. So that's my thoughts. I'm I say I'm looking at you, but I'm looking at all four of you. So what are your thoughts?
My feeling was this was just for more information, more gathering, so we have a little more information on every single property. We went through the public comment the other night, and now we're getting more. This is kind of the staff follow-up to each property, and then we can combine all that stuff and then eventually make a decision. But I wasn't prepared to make any provisional decisions or anything today. I just want more information today.
Yeah, I agree. The more information, the better. I've yet to actually site visit all the locations in my district, but I'm hoping that the information I receive in this briefing will help me make a future decision along with the site visits.
Okay, I'm good with that. I just wanted to clarify that because there could be some questions that lead us into debates here, and I don't know that that's where we wanted to be today. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up. So wanted to clarify the direction here.
Linda, can we get a copy of the 07 economic outlook on these to review that?
Certainly, we can send that up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Steve, I agree with you. And I appreciate you bringing that forward because we don't want to go down the rabbit holes through, debating and going back and forth. But we do want to have the opportunity to ask questions and get as much information like Dennis, you shared as well. So thanks.
Okay, yeah, I'm good. Just clarification. I'm making notes here as we go. I just wanted to, make sure that we weren't getting into the debate mode on each of these today. We're going to do that later on. So, okay, cool. Linda, you're on. Sorry.
Yeah, this is all good discussion to have. Absolutely. So the finding of consistency, there were 3 goals that this property met for the Freedom Plan, which was to pursue and facilitate the implementation of the plan vision, including development of appropriate areas within density limits that respect the overall vision of the community where water and sewer and other infrastructure is projected to be available. allow appropriately timed and scaled development, which supports, enhances, and respects and reinforces the freedom community, and facilitate economic development opportunities that support the local skilled workforce, entrepreneurs, and expand the county's employment tax base. So staff gave this property a favorable recommendation. Planning Commission, after their 8 meetings, also gave this a favorable recommendation to you, the Board of County Commissioners, citing that it is consistent with the Freedom Plan and the Master Plan, that future land use is expressed in the plan and its situation within the DGA, designated growth area, its proximity to Maryland 26, availability of water and sewer make this an ideal site for an employment campus, that the current use of the private school is consistent with that zoning designation as a primary principal use, that there are very few environmental constraints on the property, there are no zoning violations, and there was a BZA request for a variance on this property, but that has no bearing on the future rezoning of the property. Staff received no public, verbal, or written comments on this property. And so if you'd like to have a discussion, or we can move on to the next property. And this will be the same format for each property and how we lay out the information presented to you.
Yeah, I think we roll on here unless there's a question, right? Yep.
And feel free to discuss and interrupt at any time as you go through and think of something.
Oh, knowing these 4 colleagues of mine like I do, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Well, that's a good thing. Keeps the dog rolling. So the next property is I-2, 1/4/2023, Michael Wedekin. The request is from Ag to I-2. This property is situated on the Howard County line in the Woodbine area, south Maryland 97. This property is part of a greater industrial corridor in this particular area, and it's adjoining an already existing I-2 site. So if you can see here, the blue outline is the remaining part of this bigger parcel. And it has some slope and it has some trees as it hits the railroad and then the Pataxico River. This property is 5.58 acres. The piece is currently unimproved. And just a little history is that the entire property, as you can see here, this was one big parcel, was zoned ag until 1983, when this northern portion where you see the majority of stuff on the site was rezoned to IG and then subdivided into various parcels. The 5.5 acre parcel was not included in those earlier rezonings. This is the only remaining piece of ag zone land north of the river, with the rest of all of this to the north and to the west on this side of 97 is actually in I-2.
Do we have any, I apologize, do we have any understanding of why that wasn't included? It seems like it's just like it missed it.
Going back to the rationale from what happened in 1983, I don't have that information, just that the decision was not to move it forward at that time.
Okay.
So this is Maryland 97 moving south toward the Howard County line. So the property is up on the hill where you see the railroad track sign. So this and then going down the slope. So if you can see here from this map, the purple is the other portion of that property. This was the part that was subdivided off and that is still ag zoned. I-2, conservation, large lot residential, and industrial heavy all surround this property. So if you can see here to the east on 97, these are conservation, and then ag to the north of that. But then this is the bulk of the Southern County high industrial area. We've had a lot of properties come forward with site plans off of Wedekin Drive in the last year or two at Planning Commission for continued development and improvement of this area to provide different types of industrial businesses in Carroll County. This site, though, is constrained with a significant amount of forest land, and there's a significant amount of steep slopes on the parcel. Perhaps that's why the decision was made not to move it into heavy industry. And there's also a small amount of floodplain on the property. So going back to the imagery, you know, the I-2 would probably be really constrained just to this portion. It seemed like they've kind of expanded a little bit too with some of the area as well. So again, the I-2 is in heavy industrial district, and that's to provide for locations of certain types of non-ag, non-residential, and non-commercial activities characterized by manufacturing, refining, processing, and compounding of materials. It's more intense than the industrial light district. And then the finding of consistency for this property, even though it's on the edge of the Freedom area, it was not part of the Freedom Plan. This is part of the Carroll County Master Plan. And the amended 2019 plan is just outside the industrial priority funding area. When priority funding areas were designated in 1997, industrial lands by zoning were allowed to come in. So whatever reason, these were not zoned all industrial at that time, so they only chose to move forward with the western portion into the PFA.
Ms. Eisenberg, pardon me, even if this in the future turned into industrial, the property owner will be restricted on what portion of that property could actually be developed. Is that correct? Because I have a lot of constituents concerned about being on top of the river and it's a steep slope. So there's a big environmental issue. That could be stopped in the future, correct?
Correct. So if they decide to do any additional improvements to that site, they would have to fall under our current environmental regulations. And so they would have to bring that site up into conformance. So they would be limited in what more can happen with that property.
I'm just curious to know why on environmental constraints on this property, it's not the river going by it isn't listed because of the potential runoff going into the river. I would think that would be considered on environmental constraints, but it's not on this one. That's my concern with this property.
The river's on the other side of the railroad tracks to the south.
Right.
Of the
I understand that, but it's still, I mean, in some of these ranges, we get late, and it's a downward slope. I don't know. I'm not an environmentalist. I do play one occasionally, but I'm not sure. I'm looking at that, you know, because I know where the property is. I know the slope. It is a very steep slope, and I'm just wondering why it didn't come into environmental constraints. It's not something that we're concerned about, or it's not really a potential problem.
So when a site plan were to come in for this, they would have to meet all the environmental regulations for this particular property. If you can see from the imagery now, unfortunately, the site is a little compromised. It's already has some of the industrial creep into it. Anything else would really have to be contained, not on the steep slopes, not into the floodplain area, which would be on the other side of the railroad track. So here is the river here, then the railroad. So, you know, you can see from the imagery that's already being kind of utilized on this particular site. So they would really be restricted to what more could happen on this particular piece of property.
Linda, you just mentioned that part of the property that's being requested changed has already industrial use on it, correct?
No, it does not have industrial use. You can just see from the imagery here that there's rubble and stuff like that, but there's no industrial, like manufacturing or anything like that happening. You can just see a little bit of the creep from the property coming down into this particular area.
So the landowner to the north is not using that piece of property as part of what he's doing to the north of it, is what you're saying?
To my understanding, it's considered vacant and unimproved.
Okay, because if it is not vacant and has been improved, then that goes back to your comment that we should not change zoning just because something's being used as non-conforming or conditional, correct?
Well, yes and no, because this is also plan implementation. So that was one of the main tenets of looking at this, is that in the plans moving forward, it was identified to just finish out this industrial corridor with I-2.
Yeah, I understand. curious if the land user to the north is using that piece of property the way it looks like it's been improved and conforms to the piece right north of it. So,
I hear what you're saying, but part of this is plan implementation. So it's kind of, this was an area identified for various reasons to move forward to I-2 based on all of the goals and objectives of that plan. So that goes back to what the staff finding of consistency was to, again, promote goals 13, 14, and Chapter 15 Strategy R, which was to continue to facilitate commercial development to be consistent with the character and needs of the community. So this is just an extension of the already existing heavy industrial area in that section. So staff gave it a favorable recommendation and Planning Commission gave it a favorable recommendation that this is consistent with the Carroll County Master Plan, both future land use as expressed in the plan and the goals and recommendations. Understanding that there are many environmental constraints on this property, making it not ideal for heavy industrial, but rather development that supports the surrounding industrial land, and that this is the last piece of property in this industrial block that is not zoned for heavy industry and completes the industrial corridor.
Is the property north of it conservation?
It's all industrial. So if you can
All
see this,
industrial around it, okay.
here's the existing zoning map. So everything to the north is all I-2. The future land use, this just brought this one piece of property into conformance. The recommendation from Planning Commission in that plan and adopted was to move this all into industrial. And again, the acreage is 5.58 acres.
Linda, looking at that aerial photo and the one we have in our books, it does appear that there has been development on this parcel. There's clearly a building with a brown roof and, unless that's gone between now and the time that it's right here, yeah. So,
As unimproved, so if there's something happening on the property, no one has reported it happening.
I'm sorry.
No,
If it's
no one
been-
reported it happening on the property. And Ested has it as unimproved.
Right, but as we found out throughout this entire endeavor, there's lots of misinformation in the SDAT data.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. That's what we have to go by as an objective. And I will say this, we are not looking at zoning violations. We are not looking to make this
Right.
punitive in any way. So yes, it is very obvious. However, we are not the arbiters of what someone is legally or not legally doing in this. And there are no official violations reported on the property as we reviewed it. And if we did find official violations, we do make you aware in the staff reports regarding that.
Well, I just want to that it was unimproved. Clearly there was something there and it's been improved. So I just want to make it clear to the commissioners that if they hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, no,
Well,
totally. We're going by that data though, because that's the official record.
Okay, I did notice it, but isn't that taking us down into the rabbit hole that you were talking about, Commissioner Rothstein? And I'm not sure that that's, I don't think that's where we want to go right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's again, recognizing what the property is, recognizing, and again, doing the homework on what the property's intent is, and just keep going. But yeah, and Linda, understood, we are not intending to catch somebody in doing something wrong or inappropriate on a piece of property. That's absolutely not our intent. But in the same sense, we have a responsibility to recognize what it looks like, and that's what we're doing. We're not turning a blind eye to it. That's all. So, yeah, we got it. And I mean, I got enough information on this. We just keep going. I mean, depends on whoever else. Eric.
Okay, so anyway, staff gave it a favorable recommendation, again, for plan consistency, and again, this is plan implementation. And Planning Commission also gave it a favorable recommendation. There's been no public verbal or written comments received on this property. And I'll just move on to the next one, which is C214-2024. This is Deborah Stockdale. The request is from R20,000 to C2. So the property is within the Freedom planning area, and it's within the priority funding area. It is on the south side of Maryland 26, and it's basically pretty much across the street from Liberty Exchange. So this is Exchange Drive, that's Old Liberty Road, this is Liberty. So it's a series of 3 parcels that comprise this request. And the total acres is 8 acres roughly. These properties were zoned ag up until 1977. In 1977, they were rezoned to R20 after the adoption of the 77 Freedom Mini Plan. This is a picture off of Maryland 26 at one of the entrance points into the back end of the property. Again, as I said, the existing zoning is R20,000. To the east is C2. Across is industrial, and to the west is R20,000. The future land use for this property is commercial medium, as well as the property to the west. The property to the west is a church. They did not come forward with a rezoning at this time. Again, the purpose of the C2 district is to provide for locations for a diverse range of medium intensity retail, service, and professional office uses. Also, if you recall, C2 does allow for age-restricted housing as well. This is intended to serve a larger population than C1, but not as large as C3. And bicycle and pedestrian access is encouraged where possible to ensure compatibility with nearby neighborhoods.
Hey, say that about the church again, Linda. That went over my head. What was the church thing?
The church to the west, this bigger red piece of property, they did not come forward to request a rezoning at this time.
Okay, got it, thanks. Okay.
So again, this is consistent with goals 1, 2, and 4 of the Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan. Staff gave this a favorable recommendation, as well as Planning Commission. The request is consistent with the 2018 Freedom Plan and the Carroll County Master Plan. The future land use expressed in the plan, its situation within the Freedom designated growth area and its proximity to future water and sewer make it an ideal C2 candidate. The future land use is consistent with this zoning designation, and there are no zoning violations on this property. To date, there have been no public verbal or written comments that we've received. And so
the property to the west, that church, you said that they have not requested a zoning change.
correct.
So the
what-
zone of where the church is R20?
Correct.
Because, so you have on your future land use, the assumption that that piece of property is going to be changed to C2.
That's
But,
the land use.
but why would you put that there if they're not requesting it?
Because the future land use is what is on the map from the 2018 Freedom Plan.
Okay,
We're talking about zoning. So what we did for everyone that was identified having a future land use changes, we sent letters out like a year ago saying your property's identified. If you'd like to rezone, come see us. And so they chose not to rezone at this time.
so those 3 parcels, in accordance with the Freedom Plan, land use are commercial too.
Correct.
RC.
So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions? Okay. So the next will be presented by Cody Spade. This is C207-2020-0005. Hale and Helen Stonesifer. Request is R10,000 to C2. So I'm going to go ahead and
Hey, Cody, you're muted. You're gonna have to go up, probably have to go up to that little gear in the right-hand side and make sure your setting's correct.
Good now?
We got you.
Good to go, man. Let her rip.
Awesome. Thank you very much. As Linda stated, this property is C207-2020-0005, Helen Stonesifer. This request is from R10,000 to C2. As you can see from the map, it is located at 438 East Main Street here in Westminster, just outside the corporate limits and within the boundary for priority funding as well. The next map will show you the location as well as an aerial view of the properties around this property. The next slide will show you a photo of the property. Some of you may recognize the property itself. Moving on to the existing zoning around this property. As you can see, the adjacent properties are currently zoned C2. The property itself is R10,000 as well as some of the properties to the east, or west rather. And same for future land use. The properties to the northeast and south are all zoned future land use commercial, and the current property is currently suburban residential.
Cody, say that again. The current usage is what?
The current future land use is suburban residential, as well as some of the surrounding properties to the east being suburban residential.
And let's just clarify really quickly too. So this is a unique property that it's not in our planning area for the master plan, and it's not in the, it's in the municipal growth area for Westminster. That plan does need to be updated. It's something that we've talked about for years with the municipality. We've typically done joint plans with them with regard to the city of Westminster. We realize that there's a lot of properties that are inconsistent in many different ways, that property owners wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to make them, make them something that they're not currently. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Debbie,
so
go ahead.
this is not within the city limits. It's just east of the city line, right?
Correct.
But it
It's
is,
just that-
but it is in the DGA for Westminster.
Correct. It's literally like one property off, and there's no, they don't want to annex at this time.
Isn't there all residential around this property?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, Dick. Dennis, do you know? I think there's mixed usage up in this area on East Main, as far as I know.
Yeah, I believe there's mixed use up in this area. I think this property owner just wants to get into the commercial zoning so they can do what they want to do there. But as you can see, commercial is creeping that way. And if you go up in that street, and I do quite often, I think what's around there. But I do have a question. Did the city of Westminster weigh in on this? Are they okay with it, or have they said anything?
They have not provided any comment at this time, no.
Did we ask them?
Yeah, we did reach out to them and ask for a comment on all properties within the DGA, but they have not provided any.
That's city. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Dennis, I missed the first part of your question. You asked if the city commented, is that right?
Yes, yes,
Okay. And then the answer is no. Okay.
correct.
Yeah, and I'm thinking the exact same thing. I was about to jump on the same thing. I think, it's necessary to continue to go back to the city and asking for their comments, whether they want to give them or not. If they don't want to give them, say, we do not want to give comments or get comments from them. But do the best we can. So, yeah, I think it's important for us to continue to work with, and that's not just Westminster; it's all the municipalities as things lie right outside them.
Well, I agree, and we maybe should go back and ask them another time. But the fact is, if we ask them numerous times and they don't give a reply, my opinion, the reply is yes. Because if you have objections, is when you really want to step up. If you don't have objections, you tend to sit back and say, we'll just let it go. My interpretation, but they have the opportunity to reply if they don't agree with it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dennis. How many times do you have to ask? I mean, come on. It's not like this has been under the radar.
Exactly.
So, and I do, back to you, Dick, I'm remembering what's up there. There's a surveyor up there. There's a lock and key service up there. There's a bunch of mixed usage up there. It's not just residential.
Right. It's a lot of old homes that have been turned into some type of commercial use.
Okay,
Moving
sorry
on
about
to,
that, Jody.
Oh, no worries. Moving on to the findings of consistency, as Linda alluded to, this property does fall under the 2007 Westminster Environs Community Comprehensive Plan. And some of the consistencies we found with this property and the plan is that it provides a site for commercial development, which meets the diverse business needs of the resident population and promotes commercial development that is clustered in appropriate locations. It also is consistent with the following visions included in the 2009 Westminster Plan, including growth areas where growth is concentrated in existing population and business centers, growth areas adjacent to those centers, or strategically selected new centers, as well as contains the infrastructure needed, including water resources and infrastructure to accommodate population and business expansion in an orderly, efficient, and environmentally sound manner. It is surrounded by commercially designated and utilized land to the north, south, and east. The property to the west is used for commercial purposes as well. The street is a mixture of general service commercial uses such as a hair salon, health services, a surveyor, and several residential homes. Because of this, the staff recommendation as well as the PC recommendation have been favorable for this property. As I mentioned before, it is surrounded by C2 zoned land and property used for commercial purposes and is in close proximity to the commercial corridor on Malcolm Drive. It also has the existing water and sewer infrastructure to support conversion from residential to commercial use. It also meets the purpose and intent of the C2 district to provide locations for a diverse range of medium intensity retail, service, and professional office uses needed by a larger population than those provided for in the C1 district. And finally, the commercial zoning on this property is consistent with the development goals of that 2007 Westminster Environs Community Comprehensive Plan and the visions of the 2009 Westminster Plan. Although this property has a different future land use designation than these plans, we anticipate an update to the Westminster Plan will reconsider this designation, and the size, location, and use of this property is consistent with the purpose of the C2 district. And no public comments were received for this specific property.
And just so you know, going back to comments that you had earlier, Cody meets with our planning commission monthly. So he has been before their planning commission, making them aware of all of the rezoning efforts that we've been doing for each of the properties that are within the Westminster growth area, as we have done with all the towns. So all of the towns are not only aware of the overall effort, but we've given them detailed information on specific properties that may have the most impact for their municipality to make sure that they're weighing in on comments. And you will see we have had comments from Mount Airy on a future property, as well as the town of Sykesville have weighed in on future requests as well. If there are no additional questions, I'm going to move on to the next property, and Hannah Weber, thank you, Cody, is going to review that property with you. It is C214-2026, Sarah Evler. The request is C1 to C2. This property was rezoned as part of the overall comprehensive rezoning effort from the BNR zone to the C1 zone. They wanted to request now moving into C2 as part of this effort. So Hannah Weber will present the staff report to you regarding this.
Good morning, commissioners. As Linda said, this request is C2-14-2020-0006. The location of this request is actually in the Woodbine Rural Village. It is located right on Woodbine Road, just above the Howard County border. You can see the priority funding area of Hood's Mill to the right on the map. Here's the aerial shot of the property. You can see there are two main structures on the property. The structure in the front, with the gray roof, is actually a garage for a car. And to the north, we have residential. To the south, we have a commercial landscaping business. And to the west, we also have residential and ag. And then to the east is a mixture of residential and commercial. And here is a picture of the property. It is currently being used as an automobile service station. The existing zoning is C1. It is surrounded by ag. The landscape business to the south is also C1. And the cluster of C1 properties across Woodbine Road is the Woodbine Shopping Center, which has the postal office. I think there's a florist in there, and that is also C1. As stated before, this property is located in the Woodbine Rural Village. Its future land use designation is Village Commercial Industrial. It is surrounded by village residential and as well as ag outside of the Woodbine Rural Village. The C2 zoning district is to provide locations for a diverse range of medium intensity retail, service and professional office uses needed by a larger population. This district is also intended to provide locations for compatible institutional and recreational uses limited to residential uses and some of the general neighborhood uses associated with the C1 district. The finding of consistency. The C2 zoning is consistent with the future land use designation of Village Commercial Industrial. It is also consistent with the Chapter 15 economic goal of the Carroll County Master Plan, promote a healthy economy and additional employment opportunities by supporting the retention and expansion of existing businesses, focusing on the development and redevelopment of existing vacant and underutilized commercial and industrial properties. It is also consistent when discussing rural villages. And rural villages encourage small neighborhood commercial development that is consistent with local character and continue to facilitate commercial development to be consistent with the character and needs of the particular community. Given this consistency, the staff recommendation was favorable. This is, as I said earlier, this is currently being used as an automobile service. It has been used as automobile service and vehicle repair business in the past. But since vehicle repair is not permitted in the C1 district, they are not permitted to do those kinds of activities on the property any longer. It also is located on 1.4 acres and fronts a major collector. And the 1.4 acres is comparable to other C2 zone properties throughout the county. And C2 is consistent with the village commercial industrial future land use designation, the economic development goals, and the purposes of the rural villages. The Planning Commission gave this an unfavorable recommendation. They felt that the surrounding area was not suitable for C2. They felt that C2 designation would be too intense for this size of property since it's only 1.4 acres. And we have received only 2 comments in opposition from neighbors, and those were given to you. And since then, we have not received any other comments.
Ms. Weber, thanks for that presentation. Mr. Rothstein, do you recollect the debate on this property? And if so, could you give me a little bit of insight about that debate, please?
Well, yeah, Hannah mentioned it. From the Planning Commission, it was, again, just because you can doesn't mean you should. The surrounding areas were not conforming to C2. The concern is that it could grow into something that is not, that's too much for that area, and that's what C2 would provide. So it kind of goes back to the comments that Linda made about if something's non-conforming or inconsistent, we don't change the zoning to meet that, to make them conforming. It's kind of, it is what it is. So I think one of the other concerns was that, again, it may be, the property owner may be expanding the use beyond what is allowed right now. And that's why they want to go from C1 to C2. But that's not a reason to allow it, so.
Thank you very much.
So, I got it. So what's it being used for now?
It is currently being used as an automobile service station. And that is a conditional use in the C1. And they went to the BZA in February of 2020 to get that conditional use. But as I said, since vehicle repair is a heavier use, things like paint and like larger vehicles can be worked on at a vehicle repair. And that is not permitted in the C1 zone.
Okay, so go ahead, Mary. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just a little history on the property. It had been used for vehicle repair in the past as a non-conforming use because a vehicle repair was never allowed in the BL or the BNR. So they are requesting this so they can go back to doing vehicle repair, but it was not allowed in those districts. They had it as a non-conforming use and then it lapsed for too long of a time according to our code. I believe it was a year at the time. So that is why they're currently just doing automobile service. And they are 2 separate uses and one is more intense. The vehicle repair is more intense.
Seems like a fine line between vehicle service and vehicle repair to me. I'm not sure I'm understanding what that fine line is, to tell you the truth. I mean, you're either working on a car or you're not. They want to work on truck. What?
Well, the vehicle repair is defined as where motor vehicles, trailers, and other types of equipment are repaired, stored, or equipped for operation. It includes automotive repairs, but it also includes body repairs, vehicle painting, or spray booths. So the size of the vehicles and allowing the body repair and vehicle painting, I think, is the main difference.
And one of the comments we did receive in opposition noted that when they were doing C2 activities on the property, they had problems with the paint fumes that were going on at the property.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. The building doesn't look to me like it has a paint booth in it, so I don't know what in the world they were doing there, but okay.
And also, just make you aware too, going back to what Roberta said, we have learned a lot about State Department of Assessment and Taxation. So we had to readjust the property line, working with the property owner. So this is the actual property line. That's why the confusion with this map. Originally, we thought this whole pink section was the property, but the property owners made us aware from the property owner to the north that that was not. That was part of her property. So the future land use still shows, but we've corrected, the zoning will be corrected, that this should all be one piece as opposed to this portion as well. So we're constantly working with State Department of Assessments and Taxations to correct their boundary lines as well. So if there are no further questions on this piece, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next property. This will be presented by Price Wagner. Thank you, Hannah. C104-2020-0007, Playtime Corporation, Ag to C1. Price. Can't
Price,
hear
you're
you.
muted. You're muted. Check that gearbox up there again.
It's up on the upper right-hand corner, Price. It's the settings. You have to. Oh, you got it. We're good.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about the technical difficulties. So this is the location map coming up is this property is located off of Old Westminster Pike, in between Old Westminster Pike and Maryland 140. To the east, you'll have further down, you have Reese Volunteer Fire Department. And the aerial map will sort of show a little bit more of that aspect. But all this area is zoned agriculture, but you'll have agriculture to the north across 140, and all the properties in and around this are residential in nature. And the access is off of Old Westminster Pike between two residential houses. And we have a couple of photos showing the property itself. This is looking at the actual daycare center, which is permitted by right in the ag district. Next, we'll show some more of the land, and you'll see Maryland 140 off to the right. And then finally, the next photo is looking towards the Reese Fire Department. This total property encompasses roughly 4.88 acres. The existing zoning in and around this area is agricultural, with just a little bit of R40 up to the west, west of Arnold Road, and then of course agriculture across. And then our future land use shows all this area to be agriculture as well. However, across 140 is where we're looking into more of the industrial and commercial aspect. This property is within the Upper Patapsco Rural Legacy area. The requested zoning, as alluded in the beginning, is commercial low intensity, which provides for low intensity retail and service commercial uses, which are intended to provide goods and services primarily serving the residents of the surrounding neighborhoods with a minimum consumer travel and convenient auto access. As you may see in your packet, this property at the last available strip generation, ADT, was roughly 4,051 cars per day. And I believe actually was off of Old Westminster Pike, correct? It was off Old Westminster Pike. So finding a consistency. This request is not consistent with the goals of the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019 is contrary to goals 13, 14, and 15. Goal 13 is to promote a healthy economy and additional employment opportunity by providing land appropriately located and zoned for a variety of types and intensities for new economic development. Facilitate a development pattern that remains consistent with the fabric of the communities and is in harmony with the surrounding built and natural environments. And then pursue policies that facilitate development in appropriate areas, including VGAs, thereby protecting and conserving agricultural and environmental resources. Both staff and planning commission found this as unfavorable, and staff recommended unfavorable to the planning commission, and the planning commission is recommending unfavorable to the Board of County Commissioners. So this plan is not consistent with the 2014 as amended 2019 comp plan. Although the property is not currently in ag use, it is a legally operating commercial use as permitted by section 158.070 Part D of the county code and may continue as such indefinitely. Now, changing this property from ag to a C1 zoning category would allow additional commercial uses in section 150, which was shown in section 158.082 of the county code on the property, which is surrounded by ag zone land, large lot residentials, and as you may remember, has only one point of access off of Old Westminster Pike, which is between two residential units.
Hey, Bryce,
Go ahead.
this is daycare, which is consistent with ag. So on this piece of property, if, I don't know what the setbacks are and so forth, but if they were, could they expand their daycare here on this piece of property if they wanted to, since it is consistent with the ag?
They may be able to expand a little bit. I'd have to pull up the site plan of when this was built, just to verify, but I believe there is.
But it's not the zoning that would stop them from doing that, is what I'm asking.
That is correct, yes. It would be any kind of setback constraints or any environmental constraints, which there are very few on this property. Obviously, you have a little bit of a steep slope going towards 140, but besides that, there's not much more.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a unique property, to say the least.
It's been there for a while, is my understanding. However, I think the big point is that the access from Old Westminster Pike between residential units makes it a very unique property. In your packet, you may see we received one phone call in favor and then two emails in opposition. One pertaining to just the amount of traffic that a C1 could potentially produce, and the other speaking of the residential nature of the area and the residential feel of the area. Are there any other questions or comments?
Great, thank you, Bryce. We're going to move on to the next property. So property 8 was pulled by the property owner I-104-2020-0008. That was KMP Resources, and the request was to go to Industrial 1. So we are no longer reviewing that property. The next series of properties are the remaining of the KMP Resource. Claire Stewart will be presenting those. So if you can turn to the EC 04-2020-009 in your book, that's where we'll be picking up from. So the request is from Ag to Employment Campus, and I'm going to pass it over to Claire to give you the staff report.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yeah, Claire, you're good.
Great. As Linda said, we are down to our final 3 properties for this morning. They are all three the kennel, known as the kennel properties. The applicant is KMP Resource Recovery LLC. So the first request is EC 04-2020-0009. And as Linda said, this is a request from Ag to Employment Campus. So the request is located directly off of 140 to the north. It sits east of the Westminster corporate limits. It is inside the city's municipal growth area, which is that black and gold dashed line. And the Carroll County Northern Landfill adjoins the request to the east. Next slide, please, Linda. So to better orient ourselves, the left-hand map displays all three kennel property requests. Request number 9 is located, like I said, to the west of the landfill. Request number 12 is located 1140 at the intersection of Reese Road. And then request 13 sits behind request 12, also on Reese Road. So on the right-hand map is a closer view of request 9. This is one parcel that totals 12 acres. It is improved with one house with access to the residence is from 140. There is some forested area on half of the parcel that is closest to 140. There are some steep slopes along the property line that borders 140 and towards the west. And there is a stream branch of the Liberty Reservoir that enters the site from the west and stops about 3/4 of the way across the site. Moving on to the existing zoning map, the existing.
Hey, Claire. Is
Yes.
that house occupied, or is that residence on there sitting empty?
I believe it is
No?
occupied. Yes, I believe it is occupied. According to SSTAT.
Okay. All right.
So the existing zoning on the property is agricultural. The existing zoning for the landfill is also ag. There is some light industrial to the west of the property. And on the other side of 140 is residential 40,000 zoning. Now the future land use is employment campus. The properties to the west of this also have a designation of employment campus. And to the south have a designation of low density residential. That is all within Westminster's comp plan. And then the landfill is situated to the east of the property and has a land use of heavy industrial, and that is in the county's master plan. So the purpose of the employment campus district, and you have heard this before, is to provide comprehensive plan employment centers in a campus-like setting while providing a more flexible approach to design and development. This setting will attract employers of highly skilled workers and primarily higher paying jobs, including research and development, institutional uses, and light and limited industrial uses. The request is consistent with Goal M5, Goal M5, encourage industrial and commercial development that meets the community's vision for quality of environment and compatibility with Westminster land uses. And under Goal E2, create an environment which encourages entrepreneurs to engage in business and industrial activities and attract businesses that can be competitive in the Westminster area and will strengthen the economy by providing good wages and benefits. Both of those are from the 2009 City of Westminster Comp Plan. So staff and Planning Commission gave this request a favorable recommendation, citing consistency with the land use designation of employment campus and the goals and implementation strategies from the comp plan. The site is in proximity to future water and sewer service, and is located with direct access to 140. It is inside the municipal growth area, and access to the site and environmental constraints will be addressed during the site plan review. So the city did decline to comment on all of the kennel properties. And as far as county staff is aware, there has been no recent discussion between the city and property owner regarding the extension of water and sewer service to this request or annexation of this site into the city. So once again, we did not receive any comments from the city of Westminster. So moving on to the next slide, here is a map of all property owners that planning sent letters to regarding the kennel properties. There were a little over 110 letters sent out, and all of the letters addressed all 4 of the kennel property requests. As you are aware, we have received some comments on this request. One written comment in opposition to the request, as well as some verbal comments during the Planning Commission meetings and the October 29th listening session. Some of the concerns included water supply contamination, wildlife and natural resources preservation, possible increase in crime, increase in traffic, and decrease in surrounding property values. And these comments were forwarded to the board. As Linda said in the beginning of the presentation, this property is within the Liberty Reservoir watershed. So are there any questions for this? Actually, I will back up. Linda, would you mind backing up to one of the previous maps? So there are, this one, that one's fine. The zoning map will work. The 2 properties to the west of this are also owned by KMP Resource Recovery. The properties that have a zoning of currently light industrial. So I just wanted to make that clear that no letters were sent to those property owners because it is the requesting owner. So are there any questions on this property?
I do have some concerns, I guess, with this. How long before sewer and water would be into this area? I think we need to find that out. Number 2, I think we have to have comment from the city of Westminster on this. 140 was designed in 1951 not to have any strip zoning on it. And that, you see how well that worked. But at the point now, I think one of the people who responded, there's 40,000 cars a day go through this area. If we do any of the planned area zoning here in the future, what does that do to red lights and things like that on 140? As it is now, I wouldn't want to put a well next to a landfill myself. I find that could be disastrous later on. And I think when we started today, we looked at what is the time frame on things. Without hearing from Westminster, without knowing where we are at this point, these properties probably eventually will wind up in some other designation. But at the present time, I'm not sure we're ready to make that happen until it may be in this plan. So I'm a little bit concerned. I've heard from a lot of the neighborhood there and their concerns on it, and a lot of them are substantial, particularly when we get into the protection of water and the Liberty Reservoir. That one really stands out here because the streams to the back all flow directly into the Liberty Reservoir. So I do have a lot of concerns at this time, and I think we have to definitely hear from the city of Westminster.
Yeah, I think getting details on the water is going to be important. And also the traffic. I don't know if a traffic analysis was done on 140 or in that area. When was the last one done? You know, just getting as much of the pieces put together because this is another one of those properties that adds up to another property and another property, and we have to look at what the intent of that whole area is going to look like after we're all said and done with this. So my concern is that we do not take a look at individual properties on their own merits, but we look at the surrounding areas, kind of where, Dick, you were talking. You know, just getting more homework done, not going down, like you said, Steve, that rabbit hole in discussion, but I think we do need a little bit more understanding of this infrastructure surrounding this property. So.
Sure, and I will certainly reach out to the city again, asking for comments. And I can reach out to SHA and see if they have any comments for Maryland 140. Any other?
Okay. Yeah, I'm still, maybe it's because I can't read a map today. It's not a good sign for a firefighter not to be able to read a map. So let me put that disclaimer out there. Can we zero in on where this particular one is again? I'm trying to see where it is as it pertains to the landfill entrance. Are we before it? I don't know where we are here.
Yes. Okay. So on the left-hand map, Linda, can you? Yes. So this is her cursor is on the request right now, and the landfill is the large property to the right of that. So where she is circling on the screen is the entrance to the landfill off of 140. So if you're driving westbound on 140, you're going to pass the entrance to the landfill, and then this is the next property.
Yeah, this is I believe it's a White House between the landfill and the city of Westminster. It's off to the side. My concern about this is the only way you can get on this property is off 140. Is that correct? And there's no plans to go any other way. So my concern is traffic. If you're going to do something here, you got to get in and out of 140 to access this property. So that's concerning to me. And again, I would like to hear from the city what they think about it. But the traffic, if that's the only way in and off of this property, and you can try to put some type of employment campus here, I don't know how it's going to work.
My major concern is the cost to the county for in the future here on some of this. As this develops, it does cost the county infrastructure, a lot of expenses here. We have to look into that, and I think that's not being addressed at all here at the point, because these changes drive our budget for the next 10 years. We really have to be conscious of it.
Not disagreeing with any of those comments. I'm just trying to drill down on location today. I'm not really wanting to debate these properties. You guys are kind of going into the debate mode here. I just wanted to know whether this was on the Westminster side of the landfill, and that question's been answered. Okay.
You need a GPS.
You're right.
Okay, so we will move on. This is request C304 2020 0012, as well, a kennel property, KMP Resource Recovery LLC. This request is to be rezoned from Ag to C3 Commercial High. also located off of 140 to the north. It's located at the intersection of Reese Road. We sit to the east of the Westminster corporate limits, outside of the municipal growth area this time. And then the northern landfill adjoins the request to the west this time. So we'll move on to the next slide. The overview map of the three properties is on the left. And Reese Road is just to the east of this. I don't know if you can point that out with your cursor, Linda. So this parcel, or this request, is a combination of three parcels, all of parcel 73 and 1003, and then half of parcel 1601. And together the request is 57 acres. Parcel 1003 is improved with a residence, but also with access from 140. And this residence is part of an MHT historic site, number 1351, the Everly Thompson Farm. There is some forested area on the site, most of which is located on parcel 1003. There is also a stream branch of the Liberty Reservoir that enters that same parcel from the northwest corner and stops before we reach 140. And there are some sporadic steep slopes along 140. On the next slide, we have a few pictures. The first picture, next slide, please. Yes, thank you. The first picture is taken from Reese Road, looking west onto 140. And then the second picture is taken from Reese Road as well, looking north into the field. So the request itself is zoned ag, and all land immediately surrounding the request is also zoned ag. The land use is commercial high from the amended county master plan. Agricultural land uses are present to the east and to the south of 140. And then to the north and west is heavy industrial future land uses. And once again, that larger parcel to the west is the county landfill. The purpose of the C3 district is to provide locations for high intensity, large scale retail businesses and destinations of a regional nature, planned business parks, clusters of commercial development, wholesale businesses, offices, and some light processing operations, and compatible institutional and recreational uses, as well as some medium intensity uses associated with the C2. The C3 district should be located in proximity to transportation infrastructure and major corridors. From the 2014 amended comp plan, the request is consistent with Goal 13, promote a healthy economy and additional employment opportunities by providing land appropriately located and zoned for a variety of types and intensities of new economic development activities, and with the implementation strategy to zone adequate commercial, industrial, and employment campus lands to increase the non-residential tax base along major roadway corridors to encourage the assembly of small, separate adjoining parcels of developable and single larger parcels. So staff and planning commission gave this request a favorable recommendation as well, citing the proximity to Maryland 140, the sufficient size of the property with the combined parcels, the consistency with the county master plan, felt that this site was an ideal candidate for the commercial high zoning. And once again, access to 140 environmental constraints and the historic site will be addressed during site plan review. And as you are aware, we have received several written, verbal comments, as well as phone calls from citizens throughout the entire process, including the October 29th listening session. Concerns from citizens include water supply contamination, wildlife and natural resource preservation, increase in crime and traffic, decrease in surrounding property values, inconsistency with surrounding zoning and residential development, no planned water and sewer service, and the location as it sits outside of the Westminster corporate limits and municipal growth area. So the board should have a copy of all of these comments, and this property as well is located within the Liberty Reservoir watershed.
Hey, Claire, I think the same as the last property, the due diligence and the homework necessary, about 140 and the infrastructure will allow us to make a decision moving forward on all of this. So not to repeat myself, but I am with what I think is going to be necessary to help us with some more homework. Thanks.
Just one comment. I invite each of you to take a drive on Reese Road. It's a paved cow path, so you understand what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I get all that. The only comment I have about this, and maybe to what you said, Ed, I'm unclear as to why P&Z didn't get state highway information before they made a favorable recommendation to us. I'm a little unclear about that step. And secondly, I'm a little bit challenged by the fact that this is a historical site, and that sort of has been glossed over by just saying, well, we'll identify that during rezoning. Doesn't that have a lot of weight? That's my two questions.
Yes, I appreciate it. And actually, Linda will give you the details on why those two were not addressed when we were working to define the zoning requirements. But go ahead, Linda.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, so 2 points. So Planning Commission did hear from State Highway Administration actually during the master plan process. They reviewed the master plan. All of these properties that you're discussing today that are consistent with the plan were reviewed by State Highway as part of that.
That they're not going to do. If they're not going to do it for P&Z, why are they going to do it for us?
Because we're the Board of Commissioners and because we know it's the right thing to do. And, without saying anything inappropriate, I really do believe a lot of this is backwards when we look at land use, zoning, site planning, and we are so, clear cut in the approach with land use, then zoning, and then site plans before others get themselves engaged. We've got to look at this more holistically, get those that need to be involved, like State Highway, and to look at these traffic analysis, because if not, we're going to end up zoning something, and then site plan, it's going to be a waste of their time when they don't get the opportunity to develop in accordance with the zoning. I just think that we've got to look at this a little bit differently on how we're, allowing for site planning and zoning to come together and get everybody involved, like State Highway, because I agree 100% with you.
Okay. Well, listen, with all due respect, I'll be blunt. As a lifelong resident here, I don't need State Highway to tell me how much traffic's on 140. I already know the answer. So now to the historic part of my question, Linda.
Unfortunately, historic properties don't carry a lot of weight unless they are preserved under some type of easement or trust. It's just an identification piece. So it has a Maryland Historic Trust number. It's been identified by the Maryland Historic Trust. Unless we, the county, were to have stronger historic preservation guidelines, it does not hold weight. Even properties on the National Register of Historic Places can still be torn down and altered, unfortunately. it's just the nature of historic. If you're in a historic district or you're historically preserved, getting that identification is the first piece and moving into those next more stringent criteria. But unfortunately, it's just an identification piece. So that building was torn down several years ago by the property owner. So now we just have it in our information that it has a historical component to it. But we have no other leverage in county government to do anything more than that.
And Commissioner Wentz, your comment about 140 is exactly what needs to be heard. And that is, let common sense take over than what people are saying is or is not allowed on 140 or any of these other roads. Because as we move forward, you know, Marriottsville too, you know, down in my area is a very challenged road, and people are saying, oh, it's fine. Well, it's not fine. Common sense has got to take over. So your comment about 140 is exactly, goes back to what I started with. And let's focus on common sense on how we're taking over these properties. So thanks.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that, Ed. And I'm not arguing the point with you at all. I'm just saying that putting staff in a position to ask State Highway for an opinion that they're probably not going to give us if there's no site plan just doesn't make any sense to me. And common sense would tell me, and I'm not here to debate this again. I think most folks know with my comments how I feel about these properties, but common sense would tell me without having to go to the state that I'm not sure why that wasn't taken into consideration when this was being debated at the PZ level. So that's all. That's just my 2 cents, and I don't want to get into the debate again here today. We'll do that later down the road here. So thanks, Linda, for the historic thing. That's a little troubling. You know, I've tried to work before with our historical group here. You know, when things are disappearing that have historical value, that's a little troubling to me.
Yeah, Mr. Wayne, I appreciate you bringing up the historical aspect. I belong to a Civil War trust, and they're constantly going out fighting to buy up battlefield acreage that would be rezoned commercial. So even they in the historical societies for the Civil War are fighting tooth and nail to preserve this land because it's up for grabs, and whoever the highest bidder is on the zoning gets it.
Yeah, my only comment, yeah, I agree with you, Eric. I agree with you tenfold. It amazes me that we have to jump through hoops down in Warfield because of the historical value of those homes down there, but yet a property owner can tear down something that's historical. Y'all getting a little bit of a on that one?
Yeah, and unfortunately, Warfield has a historic district overlay, so that adds that additional layer. Just like our historic Uniontown is very strict too, because it's a historic district. So that's what adds that additional leverage on those properties for the historic nature. So moving, this is
but the gist, I apologize because it's important, but the gist of your comment, both Eric and Steve, is 100%. You know, things just don't seem to be right. And we've looked too much in these books for how to do things, definition and common sense takes away. And those buildings, regardless of how dilapidated they are, we can't touch them. And I lived that life on Fort Meade, so I know exactly what you're saying. So I appreciate those comments.
I just want to mention, Commissioner Rothstein, you mentioned roads, and that is, traffic is going to be our big issue here. I actually remember when 26 and 32 were stop signs. So they have grown quite a bit. And like Commissioner Wance, I also grew up here, remember how things have evolved. Maybe we are doing things backwards a little bit, but you know, we do have to preserve history. And I'm surprised the little weight we carry on this, but let's move on.
But you also remember the whip and buggy, but that's a different story.
See how you all have tied all of this together? Is Weaver actually an historical site? Weaver, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, go ahead, Claire, sorry.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the last request being presented today. Once again, this is one of the kennel properties. The request number is I-204-2020-0013. And this is a request to be rezoned from ag to heavy industrial. Thank you. The request is located, once again, just outside the Westminster Municipal Growth Area to the east of the Westminster corporate limits, located on 140 to the north, and Reese Road is to the east of this property, and we're located right above the last request. So on the left-hand map, again, are the 3 kennel properties, which we received applications for. This request is a combination of 3 parcels, all of parcel 75, all of parcel 534, and the other half of parcel 1601. And together the request totals 80 acres, all of which is currently unimproved. So 1601, that the northern half of that is requested for the heavy industrial, and the southern half of that is part of the previous request for C3, commercial high. The request is heavily forested in some areas. Much of the forest cover is located towards Reese Road. There are some steep slopes on parcel 534, and there is a stream branch of the Liberty Reservoir that bisects the parcel 534. That comes a little bit across Reese Road. The request itself is zoned ag. All of the surrounding land is zoned ag as well. The request has a land use designation of heavy industrial from the amended 2014 County Master Plan to the east and north.
I apologize, I'm cutting you off, but on that map, the landfill, that's the county property, to the top of it. Why is that considered industrial, the landfill itself? I mean, we're not building on it, and we're not allowing more growth on that landfill. It should just be the landfill. And, you know, I don't see how those properties conform to the landfill being industrial. Sir?
Are you asking why the landfill was given the heavy industrial?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Linda, can you answer that during the 2014 master plan?
So the idea was to have the landfill also put into industrial. We just did not rezone it as part of this effort, but it's zoned agriculture. So the idea would be to have one industrial park pocket in this area.
Yeah, but it looks like we're justifying 3 parcels to be conforming to the landfill being industrial, as opposed to if we leave it as agricultural or whatever, as the landfill, then those 3 properties would not be conforming to what the landfill is. I'm just curious why the landfill is.
To be honest, the land's not farming. I mean, it's the landfill. So it is more in tune with ag. So even though it's zoned ag currently, I mean, it really is not anywhere near. It's the furthest you can be from an agricultural site. So that was the rationale behind it with future land use designation.
Okay. I thought parts of that landfill are capped. No? And if they are, then it's.
Did you say capped?
Yeah.
Here itself, I mean, I don't have all the details. That would be more of a public works question, but I mean, you know, it is an area where we collect refuse, where we're burying our waste. So.
Oh, no, I understand what a landfill is, but are there cells in that landfill that are capped?
Yeah. Yeah, there's one. Yeah. Yeah, there's one cell that's capped already.
Right.
And I think second one soon, but I'm not sure where you're going, Ed. You're saying that maybe it should be should be called something else?
Well, when they're capped landfills, I mean, and I'm just using my experience. I mean, I was getting ready to build a golf course on a capped landfill. I mean, it's nice property. It's capped. It's not heavy industrial, or it's not industrial. It's scenery.
I see where you're going.
And there's, I mean, it's actually more conservation than anything else, if I was to call it something. So just because it's a landfill doesn't mean that it's big and ugly, you know? And when they're capped cells, they could be used, you know, for nice areas. And I think it's unfair when we put it all in as industrial. And again, I'm not sure why we did that, but except because we call it a landfill and we know what landfills are used for. So.
Okay. Yeah, good point.
Makes too much sense. You know, landfill.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Because
exactly.
Perception would tell you that a landfill is ugly, terrible, and dirty and everything else, where, you know, the best practices that we are required and are doing, whether required or not, would say otherwise. So, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Okay.
I think environmentally, I mean, they're more conservation than anything else, especially once they're capped. And that's where we're at. So, okay.
Look at our other landfills and what they look like. I mean, they are ball fields and solar panels. So I agree with you.
Okay, Linda, back to the future land use map. So the future land use of request number 12, which sits just below this request, is once again commercial high. And then there is future land uses of ag to the south of 140 and on the other side of Reese Road, and a little bit to the north of this request as well. The I-2 district is characterized by activities such as heavy manufacturing, refining, processing, or compounding of materials or products predominantly from raw materials. Some light manufacturing uses from the I-1 may be permitted. Uses associated with the I-2 district are intense and may frequently include operations that emit odor, noise, light, dust, and pollution. I-2 district should be located near major thoroughfares or other major modes of transportation. From the 2014 amended county master plan, this request is consistent with goal 13, promote a healthy economy and additional employment opportunities by providing land appropriate located and zoned for a variety of types of and intensities of new economic development activities, and with the implementation strategy to zone adequate commercial, industrial, and employment campus land to increase the non-residential tax base along major roadway corridors, encourage the assembly of small, separate adjoining parcels and developable land into single larger parcels. Staff and Planning Commission gave this request a favorable recommendation, citing the request is consistent with the future land use of industrial heavy from the 2014 master plan, as well as the goals and implementation strategies we just reviewed. Proximity to Maryland 140 and consistency with the county master plan make this site an ideal candidate for the requested heavy industrial zoning. Once again, access to the site, environmental constraints are addressed at time of the site plan review.
Be clear before you just finish up with this. I want to make clear also during the Planning Commission discussions, and especially during their voting on favorable, unfavorable, I completely recuse myself from those. I would add some discussion, but very, very little to allow myself to have as much open of a mind as possible during these discussions. So yeah, this was from the Planning Commission itself, those comments. And I would, do you have the environmental constraints slide by chance for this property? And you're muted, I'm sorry.
There is not a map included in the PowerPoint, but there is one included in your binder.
So if we look at the binder, it goes right back to the discussion about the landfill, as much of it is environmentally constrained because it's a landfill and it's capped. I think if I can ask again, more homework is if we can look at these maps and these slides and separate the landfill from industrial to calling it the landfill, it'll allow us to see a much better picture of the properties that are in question and in request. So.
Hey, Ed, your comment begs the question for me, and in the interest of not trying to be blunt, but I'm going to be, was this a unanimous decision by P&Z?
In all honesty, I do not remember, but it is in the records, and Linda can get that for us. I just don't recall, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. Some of these make, well, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to say anymore, sorry.
We can get the record for you.
You guys don't have to do that. You've done enough work on these things. I'm not going to ask you to do that. I'm just curious. I just, based upon what we've heard and all this, I was just curious about that question. That's all. I don't need that. You guys are good.
Okay. And as you are aware, like I said, for the C3 property, they were all of the same concerns that we heard from citizens. We received numerous phone calls, written comments, and verbal comments, all of which were forwarded to the county commissioners. Once again, this property is in the Liberty Reservoir watershed. Are there any further questions for this site? All right, thank you for your time, Linda.
All right, commissioners, that's all that we have for you today. The next time we meet, we will be picking up with property 10, which is Tevis property. Our next discussion date for this is November 10th, again, 9 a.m. So we went a little bit over the 2 hours, but there was a lot of good discussion that we had today. And so we will work on getting you the additional information that you requested, and we'll bring that back to you at a future meeting. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We're happy to do whatever you need.
I appreciate everything you've done today, and they're very good. And I remind Commissioner Rothstein, we're here for a task, not a time.
I got you back there, Mr. Frazier. No, this was great, Linda, and you know how I feel. You and the team are doing fantastic. I think we have a lot more homework still to be done for even these 10 properties. Getting us some of that information will help us make clearer decisions. This was good. This was good stuff.
So actually, I do have voting records if you're interested, that they were all unanimous by the planning commission for 9, 12, and 13. Property 8 was actually pulled. That was unanimous for unfavorable.
Were all members present for those votes?
Mr. Canali was not present for those votes. So all but one. And then their alternate voted in his place at those meetings.
Linda,
Yes, ma'am.
next time we meet, we're going to do 10. What numbers are we going to do? Just so 10.
So starting with 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Thanks.
And that's posted on our website. All the subsequent meetings and the properties with their staff reports are on carrollrezoning.org.
On a humorous side, before we go, I want to let Commissioner Weaver know, don't feel bad you getting picked on about the historical comment. I one time gave a tour of Gettysburg Battlefield to a high school student. At the end, she asked me if I was there.
What was your answer?
I said, I appreciate the comment because I think I look pretty good for 175 years old.
Well, look at Wance. He looks good for that age. Okay, thank you, Linda. You did a great job. We finished
Yeah,
here?
Thank you to staff. I'll echo those comments. Very, very well done. And I meant no disrespect on asking for voting records when it comes to some of these, but I don't know. Just some of these are really making me shake my head a little bit. That's why I was kind of curious, and I wasn't involved in the debate.
You do.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in the debate, obviously, but it's interesting to me how we came to some of these decisions based on some of the details associated with some of these properties. So appreciate you guys' hard work on this. Hey, the binder itself tells you that you guys did a ton of work. I mean, I can't even lift the thing. I'm just a little guy. I can't lift it.
Are you
Commissioner Rothstein, I'll let you have the final word here and take us out, if you will, sir. This is your show.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hey, just for the record, Dennis, did you try to second before Weaver? I missed that part of it. I don't know.
I did try to get in there first, yes.
Okay. Hey, thank you all very much. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still tuned in, if you haven't voted yet, get out there and vote. All those in favor of adjourning? That seems to be unanimous. Have a good day. See you Thursday.